Well, I apologize. Missed last week. I mean, I got to be better. It's going to be better for all of you. I know you're counting on your Dawg Talk with Brock each and every week, but had some travel issues, ate too much barbecue in Texas, thought I could do an emergency Dawg Talk. It just never materialized. So here we are down the home stretch of the season over the final 3 weeks. Got to finish strong. What I've learned, what I think, what I know. What I've learned, what I think, and what I know about the University of Washington football team. Well, I learned that at home, they're pretty darn gritty. There are really some parallels with the team down the road, down 405 and across 520 in the Seattle Seahawks and the Washington Huskies this week. The greatest parallel, and this will be a little bit more on what I know, the greatest parallel is some of the struggles at the line of scrimmage. The biggest difference is that the Seahawks have had a hard time winning at home, and the old Huskies have played some of their best ball, including on Saturday against a USC team that they had to try to beat and find a way to win, and they did just that. So what I have learned over the course of this season, what I have learned on the college football road, what I have learned is that Jedd Fisch is an excellent play caller. In talking to former players of his when I had an Arizona game, talking to defensive coordinators in college football, talking to head coaches. In fact, Prime Deion Sanders a couple weeks ago talking about a different game as they were facing Arizona. And he said, man, one of the big differences is that Jedd Fisch was a monster. Man, Jedd Fisch knows how to put a plan together and is one of the better, especially on game day, play callers. Now, I know as I say that, there are Husky fans screaming and yelling, maybe even old former quarterbacks from UW that would disagree with that completely. And I understand that, some of the DeMond Williams, some of the how you make this work with Will and coming in and taking out a rhythm. And I do. I think that there is an argument to be made about that, and certainly some merit and some frustration, understandably, behind balancing the current with Will Rogers for this season and the future with DeMond Williams and trying to get him work. But I think what is undeniable is the plans that he puts together and the way that he wants to take apart teams in the mix of run and pass, his screen game, his third down game. Actually, the offensive coordinator at the University of Colorado, a guy by the name of Pat Shurmur, he framed this very well. And this is the advantage that Jedd Fisch has, having lived in the NFL world and the college world. And this is Shurmur's first go around the last 2 years in the college game. He's like, it's bizarre. It's crazy. They're totally different games. The NFL is like 3 games in one. In the NFL, you have first and second down. It's its own game. You have third downs. It's its own entity. And then you have red zone, which is a completely different plan. And you really compartmentalize your plan and the game into those 3 very structured areas of early downs, third down, and then obviously the red zone area that is so critical. He's like, the college game doesn't have that. It is so much more fluid. The personnel is different. The game planning is not as exotic in those areas and buttoned down, and it's just a very fluid, kind of like basketball, just much more of a back and forth game. Well, Jedd Fisch has lived in both, and I think he takes the best from both. And he has been a tremendous play caller. So I have learned, not just with my own eyes watching the tape and seeing the execution and seeing the balance and seeing the 100-yard rushing games and seeing, once again, the QB playing extraordinarily well from an efficiency standpoint. I've also learned it from some of the key voices in college football that give Jedd an awful lot of credit. What I think for this week, so what I learned is Jedd Fisch is a great play caller. What I think is that Happy Valley this week and the whiteout at Penn State is one of the most special football environments you can find. I ran into some Husky fans out in Iowa City that went to the Husky game, and it was fun to see them at the coffee shop before the game and around the hotel that they were at. And some of them were like, wow, this year I'm trying to pick and choose my spots of which games to go to, and went to Michigan a couple years ago, decided on Iowa, didn't know about the travel in November to Penn State, a little tougher, a little harder to get there than it was to Iowa City. But for those Husky fans that decided, you know what, the one trip I got to go see is I got to go see Penn State. I got to go see this whiteout. I got to go see what my buddy Kirk Herbstreit, who I really respect, has been very clear and on the record, and even said in the moment, there is nothing in college football like the whiteout at Penn State.
We go to a lot of big games, a lot of big settings. There's nothing like the whiteout at Happy Valley.
And oh, by the way, the Huskies are going to be walking into that whiteout with a bunch of angry Nittany Lions who are still very much alive in the playoff conversation. Now that this is expanded to 12 teams, the James Franklin loss every year to Ohio State is not going to kneecap and totally cripple them. They have everything still on the table to play for. They are going to give Washington their very best shot. And if Iowa City was special and Iowa City was loud, let me just tell you, 100 and some thousand that turns out in Happy Valley, all wearing that whiteout, the pregame music, the buildup, the aura, all of it is just an incredible, incredible scene, and going to be really hard on that offensive line. So that I do know. I learned that Jedd Fisch is a great play caller. I think, like Kirk Herbstreit, that a whiteout in Happy Valley and for the Husky fans attending will be one of the most special, monumental college football scenes. It's almost like a rock concert, right? It's just a concert that I got to go experience. I've heard so much about it. I got to go feel the energy. I got to go see what it's about. I will be very surprised if I hear from Husky fans either on this forum, social media forums, on the radio show that, no, Brock, it didn't really live up to it. No, that concert, that show, that lives up to it. And then lastly, here's what I do know. I do know that this gauntlet, and we knew this going into the season, that this gauntlet, this final quartet was going to be the most challenging of all when it came to the schedule. There were 3 on the 4 on the road leading up to this final quartet, but playing USC at home, and they got it done, going to Penn State, playing UCLA on a short week after that trip to Happy Valley all the way across the country. Their third trip across the country will not be easy on a short week, and then ultimately down there at Oregon. I know that this final stretch will be incredibly difficult, but I also know if they can find one more. And 13 and a half point underdogs at Penn State with the Lions coming off a loss, going to be hard. Going to take a near perfect game, certainly from the quarterback and the defense and everybody else, in multiple takeaways, kind of like they got against SC. Going to take that maybe even more. Odds very long. UCLA on a Friday night. UCLA is playing better. Won a couple games here. Actually won at Nebraska. So what looked like maybe a gimme in the first 4 games, you're getting UCLA in a first-year head coach, kind of like Jedd, that is playing some pretty good football. And then at Oregon, they're going to be the biggest underdog they've been all season in any singular game. So I know that finding a way to win one of these final 3 will be critical. I know the role that played Saturday night, beating SC in front of more recruits and trying to make sure this recruiting class that's number 17 in the country stays number 17 in the country. I know one win in the final 3 would go a long ways to solidifying that, getting them signed in December, and not having to worry about too many of them being poached or look the other way. So I know that this is going to be one heck of a final home stretch, and Husky fans going out to Penn State, I know that you're going to walk away from there going, this Big Ten thing, I don't get it. Still doesn't make sense. I'm kind of with Brock. A lot of it doesn't really feel right. But I know that these trips to Iowa City, I know these trips to Penn State, I know that the Big Ten is truly one of the power brokers in all of college football, and a cathedral and a concert like you're going to get to rock out in Saturday night out there in Happy Valley will be an experience you remember forever.